Are you serious? Are you serious? Oh, we got a horrible situation in Afghanistan, in Kabul. Another major explosion, double explosions, twin bombings that have cost a lot of people their life. But before I go into this story, I want to remind you today's the last day for that spring special at my good friend Bob Kudla's website, the www.tradegeniusacademy.com. That's tradegeniusacademy.com. This is the final day, right up until midnight tonight, if you're going to get involved in his spring special. If you're trying to figure out the stock market and or currency values, Bitcoin, precious metals, any of those things, and you want to understand it better and get direct access to the numbers, this is the last day to sign up for this. You want to get this. So check out, again, a Christian company, www.tradegeniusacademy.com. Let me tell you what's going on. This has been a terrible, terrible scene in Afghanistan this morning. 29 people are confirmed dead. Twin ISIS suicide blast, killing 29 and injuring a ton of folks in a horrific situation not far from the U.S. Embassy in what's supposed to be a very secured place in Kabul there in Afghanistan. At least 29 people are dead, including 9 journalists. 9 journalists have been killed. Dozens have been wounded after 2 explosions. Actually, they say 50-some wounded after twin explosions hit Kabul, according to Afghanistan health officials. The blast went off during rush hour this morning in the district there of the capital. Al Jazeera's Jennifer Glass, reporting from Kabul, said that the armed group ISIS of Iraq, also known as Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, or ISIL, also claimed responsibility for the attack. It's ISIS. In the first explosion, a suicide bomber detonated himself close to the National Directory of Security, the main Afghan intelligence agency. And in another explosion that followed 20 minutes later, a second suicide bomber targeted the emergency medical workers and the journalist who arrived at the scene to cover the bombing. Al Jazeera's Glass said the second suicide bomber was dressed as a journalist. The Afghan Journalist Safety Committee reported that 9 journalists who rushed in to cover the explosion in the first bombing were killed in the second. And a spokesperson for the Afghan Health Ministry said the attacks killed at least 29 people and wounded 49 others. So it's a horrific scene in Afghanistan. No matter, after 17 years, the United States being involved in conflict there, at the end of the day, it's the same as it might as well be the same as it was before we ever entered in there. And that is different militant groups with all kinds of agendas continue to kill one another, whether it's the Taliban, now whether it's ISIS, or if it's Al-Qaeda, or if it's just other tribal gangs in a country plagued with no real stability. The only stability there is where there's a U.S. base or some other U.S. outpost or anything controlled by the Americans. If it's not controlled by the Americans, it's a state of danger. It's sad. I'll be back. Pray for the victims that are wounded. Pray for their families of all those that died. It is another horrific scene in Afghanistan. The Middle East, the beast of the Middle East, ISIS, continues to move. And how did they get their weapons? Is anyone ever going to ask about Barack Obama and the Arabs and the Arab Spring? Hillary Clinton and John Kerry carried it out as the State Department and allowed this radical group to rise using our equipment. Are we ever going to ask this question? Are we ever going to ask this question? Are you serious?